Hey, this is Coach Anderson from Mississippi Public Broadcasting Online U.S. History from 1877 to present. Today we're going to pick up with Unit 14, The Rise of Modern America. And we'll start with lesson number 1, Changes in Immigration Policy. What we're going to look at is contemporary American history. It's one of those parts of history in our country that doesn't get as much love as some of the earlier periods. But this one should be the most appropriate for us to look at, and we're going to take a real deep dive into looking at some of those policies, of course, that affect us today in 2025. We'll begin with looking at our 2 unit focus questions that will guide our learning as we go through this particular unit. First one, it says, how has globalization affected the development of modern America? And number 2, how has grievance affected the American political landscape? So what we're going to be, in essence, looking at is we're going to be looking at, and we've touched on it a little bit before in a previous unit where we looked at globalization a little bit, but we're going to talk about that in more depth, and we're going to look at how grievance politics has creeped its way into the American political landscape and find out what the effects of that has been. What we're also going to do is give you the vocabulary we have here. We have vocabulary that's academic and content. Do what we always tell you to do. Take out your journals, write these terms down and define them yourself. And as they come up in the lesson, we'll try to address as many of them as we can. We have 2 lesson focus questions that will guide our discussion of lesson number 1, changes in immigration policy. The first question is, why was American immigration policy considered discriminatory with the passage of the National Origins Act of 1924? And how did the Bush and Clinton administrations address illegal immigration in the United States? Well, we're going to start by looking at our Do Now activity. And what we want you to do is take out your journal and write down the statement or the question that we have here. It says, why has immigration been such a hot button issue throughout American history? And do you think that it will continue to be such a contentious issue as the nation moves forward, and why? So we're going to give you a few minutes and let you contemplate that particular answer, and on the other side, we'll come back and we'll have a brief discussion about what it is that we think. Well, when you think about it for a second here, when we look at immigration has typically been one of those issues that has affected, every presidential election that I can think of, in my lifetime. It's been an issue, especially here since the elections of George W. Bush and then, of course, Bill Clinton, who will start to address it a little bit more in our contemporary or our modern historical times. All right, the question is, why has immigration been such a hot button issue throughout American history? Well, it's all about 2 things. Number 1, it's about nativism. A lot of people in America, liked America for Americans, and they looked at, of course, as immigrants coming in as being interlopers. And because of that, we find that a lot of people didn't get behind the idea of a lot of immigration coming from places, especially that they weren't familiar with or that they didn't want to be associated with. And we're also going to be looking at jobs. A lot of Americans have said that immigrants, of course, are taking away American jobs. And because of them taking away American jobs, Americans have to compete with them for those jobs. It's left a lot of animosity between the American citizens and those people that are coming in seeking citizenship. It's one of those issues that seems to creep up throughout our history. Immigration in the 1920s, the U.S. was based on a quota system with the National Origins Act, which favored European immigrants. With the passage of the Immigration Act of 1965, those fortunate enough to make it to America could send for their relatives once they achieved citizenship. The act also expanded access to all immigrants and extended immigration access to anyone who was a refugee fleeing harm. So we're looking at 2 things that happen here. The first thing that happens in 1965 with the passage of this particular act, if you as an immigrant came to this country and you were able to get your citizenship, say you came in from Mexico and you got your citizenship, what you could do then in turn is send for your immediate family, of course, and have them come and join you in America where they could then work on their citizenship. In addition to that, we're going to find that America is going to establish a safe haven or asylum, of course, for those people that were coming from war-torn regions like Vietnam and different places like Laos and Cambodia, or any place where they were escaping political persecution or religious persecution, and the United States of America would be a refuge for them. Illegal immigration soared starting in the 1970s and 1980s and becomes a political issue in the 1990s. Both Bush presidents and Clinton addressed illegal immigration by passing legislation, building fences, and increasing the size of border control. Most measures had limited success. So when you look and you hear about, building fences and stuff like that, it's not a new thing. It has been something, of course, that's been around in our history at least since the 1970s. American immigrants. Since 1945, most of the immigrants who have come to America have been from the Western Hemisphere, particularly places like Mexico, Cuba, and Guatemala. Many have come legally seeking refuge or asylum, but many have also come illegally. Immigrants have also come from India, China, Vietnam, and the Philippines, with those four nations and Mexico leading the way in the largest number of people immigrating to the U.S. The question of what to do with undocumented immigrants remains the single most referenced political question today. So when you look at those people, the one commonality they have in common is either they're escaping some kind of political or political persecution or religious persecution, or they're coming because they're in the country that they are currently in is under some kind of economic distress. And they see the United States of America as an opportunity to improve the lives of themselves and, of course, their families. All right, we're going to look at those two lesson-focused questions. Number one is, why was American immigration policy considered discriminatory with the passage of the National Origin Act of 1924? And two, how did the Bush and Clinton administrations address illegal immigration in the United States? It's easy. The first one is easy. And the reason being is, if you look at it in 1924 with the establishment of this quota system, what it basically did is it gave preference to people who were coming from Northern and Western Europe. In other words, the group of people, of course, that came from parts of the world that looked like most American citizens. So when you look at Northern and Western Europeans, this country, of course, was founded by those, descendants of those people from those particular areas, and those are the people, of course, that, our immigration laws favored. And then the policy was aimed at maintaining the majority, white European majority in the population of the United States. All right, question number two. How did the Bush and Clinton administrations address illegal immigration to the United States? Very simple. They had passed laws, they instituted border security and guest worker programs. Clinton administration enacted the Illegal Immigration Reform and Immigrant Responsibility Act of 1996, which tightened immigration enforcement. And both administrations were criticized for not addressing the root causes of illegal immigration or providing a clear path to citizenship. A lot of people believe that one of the things that both administrations failed to do was to look at why these people were coming to the United States of America and do what we could to help those nations, to improve, circumstances and conditions in those nations, so people, of course, wouldn't want to come here in the numbers that they were coming. Well, that is the end of lesson number one, changes in immigration policy. And what we hope to do, of course, is give you some background into why, immigrants came to the United States of America and what were some of the conditions that they faced, of course, upon getting here. When you look at the United States of America, we've often been called the melting pot or the land of opportunity. And it's because of that reputation that we have that so many, people from around the world are trying to get here. Well, this is Coach Anderson from Mississippi Public Broadcasting Online U.S. History from 1877 to present. Remember what I always say, don't take my word for it. Do your own research and draw your own conclusion. And with that, we'll see you next time.